The emergency department was unusually crowded that evening. Doctors rushed between rooms. Nurses moved quickly through the corridors. Families waited anxiously for updates, while the constant sound of monitors filled the background. Among them was a nurse named Emma Carter. She had been working for almost 12 hours, but she still moved from patient to patient with the same calm focus. Then the emergency doors opened. 3 men walked inside. They weren't there for treatment. They were looking for someone. The tallest man stepped toward the nurse's station. "Where is he?" Emma looked up. "Sir, if you're looking for a patient, I can help you. But you need to lower your voice." The man stared at her. "I didn't come here to talk to you." Emma remained calm. "This is an emergency department. You can't threaten staff or disturb the patients." One of the men stepped closer. "Just tell us where he is." Emma didn't move. "I can't give you a patient's information." The man's expression hardened. For a moment, the entire area seemed to become silent. Emma knew she was dealing with an angry group. But she also knew something else. She couldn't abandon her patients. "Sir," she said firmly, "you need to step away from the nurse's station." The man pointed toward her. "You really should learn when to stay quiet." Emma's heart began beating faster. But she didn't step back. Instead, she looked toward hospital security. And that's when something unexpected happened. A man sitting quietly near the entrance slowly stood up. Nobody had noticed him before. He was wearing a dark shirt, jeans, and a baseball cap. A worn duffel bag hung over his shoulder. He looked completely ordinary. But there was something about the way he watched the room. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't angry. He was simply paying attention. He started walking toward them. Emma noticed him. So did the 3 men. The tallest man turned. "Who are you?" The stranger stopped several feet away. His voice was calm. "Someone telling you that you've made a mistake." The men laughed. Emma didn't. Something about the stranger's confidence made her uneasy. The stranger looked at Emma. "Are you okay?" She nodded. "Yes." He looked back at the men. "Then leave." The tallest man stepped forward. "You don't know who you're talking to." The stranger gave a small nod. "Maybe not." Then he looked toward the hospital security desk. "But they do." The men suddenly became quieter. Because the stranger wasn't looking for a fight. He was giving them one last chance to walk away. And nobody in that emergency department knew yet that the quiet man standing beside the entrance was a former Navy SEAL combat veteran. The tallest man moved closer. "You think you're some kind of hero?" The veteran didn't answer. He simply stood between the men and Emma. Emma whispered, "Security is coming." "Good," he replied. One of the men looked at the veteran carefully. Something about his face seemed familiar. The man frowned. "Wait." His friend looked at him. "What?" "I've seen him before." The veteran remained silent. The first man studied him again. Then his expression changed. "You're..." The veteran raised one hand. "Don't." The man stopped speaking. Emma looked between them. "What is happening?" The veteran answered quietly. "Nothing you need to worry about." But Emma could see that the situation had changed. The 3 men were no longer laughing. They were suddenly uncertain. The tallest man tried to regain control. "This doesn't concern you." The veteran looked at him. "You're right." A pause. "But it concerns the nurse." He pointed toward the exit. "So now it concerns me." The emergency department doors opened. 2 security officers entered. Everyone stepped back. The men began arguing. "We're just trying to see someone." "You were told to leave," one security officer said. The tallest man pointed at Emma. "She wouldn't tell us where our friend is." Emma responded calmly. "Because patient information is private." The veteran nodded. "She did exactly what she was supposed to do." The security officer agreed. "That's enough. You need to leave." The men slowly backed toward the doors. But before leaving, the tallest man looked at Emma. "This isn't over." Emma froze. The veteran heard it. He turned toward the man. "Actually, it is." The man stared at him. The veteran continued. "Whatever problem you think you have with this hospital, you don't threaten people who are doing their jobs." The man looked away. Security escorted the group outside. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Emma finally turned toward the stranger. "Thank you?" He nodded. "You don't have to thank me. You could have gotten involved in something dangerous." He gave a faint smile. "I didn't." Emma looked confused. "You didn't?" "No." He pointed toward the security officers. "They handled it." Emma smiled slightly. "Then why did you step in?" The veteran looked toward the hospital hallway. "Because sometimes people need someone to remind them that they aren't alone." Emma didn't know what to say. Then she noticed the duffel bag. "Are you visiting someone?" The veteran looked down at it. "I'm waiting for a friend." Emma nodded. "What happened to him?" The veteran became quiet. "He's a veteran too." Emma understood immediately. "Is he a patient?" "Yes." She looked toward the emergency rooms. "What's his name?" The veteran told her. Emma checked the system. Then her expression changed. "He's in room 12. The veteran closed his eyes for a moment. "Thank you." Emma smiled. "Of course." He began walking toward room 12. But after a few steps, he stopped. He turned around. "Emma?" She looked surprised. "You know my name?" He pointed toward her badge. "It's on your ID." She laughed softly. "Right." He smiled. "Keep doing what you're doing." Emma watched him disappear down the hallway. She thought the story was over. It wasn't. Nearly an hour later, Emma finished checking on her patients. As she walked past room 12, she saw the veteran sitting beside his friend. The patient was awake now. They were talking quietly. Emma continued down the hallway. Then she heard someone call her name. "Emma." She turned. It was the veteran. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." He stood near the doorway. "Earlier, when those men were confronting you, were you scared?" Emma thought for a moment. "Yes." He nodded. "That's okay." She smiled. "I didn't want them to know." "Why?" "Because I was responsible for my patients." The veteran looked at her for a moment. Then he said, "That takes courage." Emma shook her head. "I was just doing my job." "No." He smiled. "Sometimes doing your job when you're afraid takes more courage than people realize." Emma didn't answer. The veteran looked back toward his friend. "I learned that a long time ago." She noticed his expression. "You were in the military?" "Yes." "For how long?" "Long enough." Emma smiled. "That sounds like a complicated answer." "It is." For a few seconds, they stood silently. Then the veteran said, "I used to think courage meant being fearless." Emma listened. "I was wrong." He continued. "Courage is knowing something is difficult, and choosing to do the right thing anyway." Emma looked toward the emergency department. "Then I guess there are a lot of courageous people here." He nodded. "Every night." Just then, a doctor walked out of room 12. The veteran immediately turned. The doctor smiled. "Your friend is going to be okay." The veteran exhaled with relief. "Thank you." The doctor walked away. The veteran looked at Emma. "You know what the strange thing is?" "What?" "I came here tonight because I thought I was the one protecting someone." He paused. "But watching you earlier reminded me that people can protect others without ever throwing a punch." Emma smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It is." The veteran picked up his duffel bag. He was ready to leave. Emma walked with him toward the entrance. Before he left, she said, "Can I ask you one more thing?" "Sure." "Why did you really step in?" He looked at her. Then he gave a quiet answer. "Because years ago, when I was having the worst day of my life, a nurse stood beside me." Emma listened. "She didn't know me." She didn't have to. She simply stayed. He looked toward the hospital. I never forgot that. Emma's expression softened. Then I guess tonight you returned the favor. He smiled. Maybe. The doors opened. Cold evening air entered the lobby. The veteran walked outside. Emma watched him disappear into the darkness. Then she returned to her patients. The hospital became busy again. Doctors continued working. Nurses continued caring. Families continued waiting. And nobody outside that hospital would ever know what happened that night. But Emma remembered. Because she learned something she would carry for the rest of her career. You don't have to be fearless to be brave. Sometimes bravery is simply standing your ground. Protecting someone who needs you. And choosing to do the right thing when walking away would be easier. And sometimes, the person who steps forward to protect you is simply someone who remembers what it felt like to need protection themselves. That night, a nurse protected her patients. And a veteran reminded her that she wasn't alone. The next hour passed slowly. The hospital became quieter. Some patients were discharged. Others were moved to different rooms. Emma continued working. Daniel remained near Marcus. Then Marcus finally handed Daniel a small envelope. This is what they want. Daniel looked at it. You've had this the whole time? Marcus nodded. I couldn't trust anyone. Daniel opened the envelope. Inside was a document containing information about several veterans who had been receiving help through a private organization. Daniel looked at Marcus. Why would they want this? Marcus shook his head. I don't know. Daniel studied the papers. Then he understood. This isn't about money. Marcus looked at him. No. They want the names. Marcus nodded. Daniel immediately stood. We need to give this to the authorities. Marcus agreed. But not through the front entrance. Daniel looked at him. Why? Because they're watching. Daniel walked toward the window. Across the street, the same dark vehicle was still there. He picked up his phone. This time, he called the police. Not because he was afraid. Because he knew that some problems shouldn't be solved alone. While they waited, Emma entered the room. Is everything okay? Daniel nodded. We're going to handle this properly. Emma looked at the envelope. What is it? Something that belongs with the authorities. Emma nodded. Then let's do that. A few minutes later, police officers arrived. The 3 men outside were taken into custody for questioning. The hospital finally became calm. Emma walked toward the entrance. Daniel stood beside the doors. She looked at him. So it's over? Daniel smiled. For tonight. Emma laughed softly. You always say that. Because tomorrow always comes. She looked at his duffel bag. Are you leaving? Yes. Your friend? He'll be staying here a little longer. Emma nodded. Then she asked, Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you step in for me earlier? Daniel looked at her. For the first time that evening, his expression became deeply personal. Because someone once stepped in for me. Emma waited. Daniel continued. Years ago, I was injured during a deployment. I was angry, scared, and convinced I could handle everything alone. He paused. There was a nurse who stayed beside me. Emma smiled. She helped you? She did more than that. Daniel looked toward the hallway. She reminded me that being strong doesn't mean refusing help. Emma listened quietly. And I never forgot her. Daniel picked up his bag. So when I saw you standing there tonight, I remembered what she taught me. Emma smiled. Then I guess you were just returning the favor. Daniel nodded. Exactly. He started walking toward the doors. Emma called out. Daniel. He turned. Thank you? He smiled. You're welcome. Then he walked outside. Emma watched him disappear into the early morning light. She returned to the nurse's station. Another patient needed help. Another family needed reassurance. Another long shift continued. But something had changed. Emma no longer thought courage meant never being afraid. She understood something different. Courage could be quiet. It could look like a nurse refusing to betray a patient's privacy. It could look like a veteran choosing restraint instead of anger. It could look like security officers doing their job. And sometimes, it could simply mean standing beside someone when they needed to know they weren't alone. Daniel drove away from the hospital. At the next traffic light, his phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "Thank Emma for me." Daniel smiled. He typed back, "I will." Then he put the phone away. Behind him, the hospital lights remained visible in the distance. Inside that building, Emma continued caring for people. She would probably never know how close the situation had come to becoming something much worse. And Daniel would probably never tell her. Because he didn't consider himself a hero. He had simply seen someone standing alone. And decided she shouldn't have to stand there alone anymore. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the loudest ones. Sometimes they are the people who stay calm when everyone else loses control. And sometimes,